I can do. That was Toni Morrison again.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, welcome, Miri Hunter.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Just get my little sheet ready here. So I'm going to introduce the talk with a little song. There's a chorus in it that you can all sing with me, and you'll hear it over and over. And by the time we get to it, you're going to be standing and singing and having a great time. Okay. Promise? Okay, here we go. Come, let us sing and dance. Come, make a joyful stance. Come and give love a chance. Hallelujah. 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 Here's to our mothers who brought us to life anew, taught us the best they knew. Hallelujah. And to our fathers who watched us throughout our youth, taught us to speak the truth. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Here's to the grandmothers and to the grandfathers, praise to all ancestors, hallelujah. Daughters and sons, we are born to redeem the earth, blessed from before our birth, hallelujah. It's pretty simple, right? Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. That's beautiful. One more time. Hallelujah, 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 For me to be here now, I must have come from somewhere. I must have come from somewhere for me to be here now. When the movie The Help came out, has anyone seen The Help?
Yes.
Okay, I swore I would never see it. Thank you. My friend, an African-American woman, told me that I just had to see it. It was so good. And I did finally see it because it was nominated for several SAG awards and I was on the SAG nominating committee. And so I got a free screener. It was a good film, strong story, great performances. Then subsequently I watched The Butler, 12 Years a Slave, Straight Outta Compton, and Harriet. So you're kind of getting the picture. I'm watching pictures on African-American stories. I wondered, why are all the stories concerning African-Americans about having to overcome some level of inhumanity at the hands of someone else, somebody other? These are stories that I kept seeing over and over again, and not just in film, but everyday life. I mean, every day, not just Monday or Tuesday, but every day. Not Thursday or Friday, but every day. Every day, I see people who look like me rise up and get on. But I gotta tell you, I'm kind of tired of rising up and getting on, doing more and getting, well, sometimes nothing. And it takes a lot of energy to rise up and get on. I was born and raised in Southern Virginia, and I grew up Christian and Catholic. Figure. After 12 years of Catholic school, I continued to educate myself by going to college in South Florida. And what college gave me Besides a yearning for something else, it gave me access. The world became much bigger and more accessible. In Virginia, my life had been surrounded by family and community at both the Baptist church, the Catholic church, but my college community enveloped people from all over the world. Most intriguing to me were the people from Africa who were brown like me, but culturally and socially different. I had been raised in a place where everyone who wasn't Black was white. Easy. By definition, Black meant that your ancestors came to America on ships. They were enslaved, and so you were a descendant of slaves. But the Africans that I met in college, who were racially connected to me, they weren't like me at all. They had a culture and a connection to another place that was theirs. That was freedom, I felt. They were just visiting here, and they chose to be here. Something about them made me long for that kind of culture of my own. Not this mashup of who I thought I was or who everyone else thought I was. I was, I guess I am, a lot of different ancestries. After graduation, a marriage, and a divorce, I moved north, had to get away. Having spent all my life in the South, I found the covertness of the racism in the North was more than I wanted to deal with. So after 3 years of being chilled to the bone, I moved to New Mexico. Gotta find myself here. I believe that my path was to study Native American traditions and to become a shaman. And I was financing this leg of my life as a teaching assistant at the University of New Mexico. And this job, along with theater classes, productions, well, it left me no time for shamanistic studies. So I left New Mexico a year and a half later, and I made my way to California. I connected with a friend that I had known in Boston, and together we began our California experience, which ended up having to do with me discovering my Jewish identity. The first social function that she invited me to was a Friday night Shabbat service. I was a bit hesitant. I mean, neither of us was Jewish. And I remember hearing somewhere that Blacks and Jews didn't really get along. Then she nonchalantly mentioned to me that she was considering converting. I didn't see that coming. The next week, she invited me to Saturday morning services. And it was there that I was actually thrown into a spiritual turmoil. When the ark was opened and the Torah was brought forth, I began to cry. Because this experience answered my question from undergraduate school of where was my culture and my religion? It was here. The scene was all too familiar to me. The turmoil was based on this nagging voice inside my head that kept insisting, no, Blacks and Jews don't get along. What are you doing here? One day I was browsing through an occult section of a bookstore, and I picked up a book on Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical text, and I began to read it in the store. It took me several minutes to realize that the book was not in English, but it was in Hebrew. And I couldn't read Hebrew, much less understand it at the time. So how was I reading this and understanding it? I bought the book and placed it high on a bookshelf. I decided I was going to face this turmoil, but slowly. So I began by taking Hebrew lessons at the local Jewish community center. I've been told that it was a great place and that you didn't have to be Jewish to be there. And I wondered if you had to be white, but I didn't really know how to ask that question. By beginning my formal study of Hebrew, I reasoned that now I would be able to tackle that book and begin some form of Jewish meditation practice. In the fall of 1994, I entered a doctoral program. I was the first in my family to embark on such a journey. And as I was entering, I heard many voices in my head, among them saying, why do you need a doctorate? What you do need maybe is a job. Or how many years actually are you going to spend running through academia? And just who do you think you are? For me to be here now, I must have come from somewhere, right? I must have come from somewhere to be here now. So that question reminded me of something that happened to me when I was in the 4th grade at Catholic school. We had a radical nun, and she was teaching history. And she said to us one day, she goes, you know, none of you are from here. You know, your ancestry is all somewhere else. It's America, you're from somewhere else. And we all kind of went, okay, sister, what do you say? And then she says, well, we're going to go around the room and everyone's going to tell me where your ancestors are from. And I kind of panicked. I went, my ancestors, God, no one in my family has said anything about our ancestry except, my grandparents met in Pittsburgh. But I don't think that's what she was talking about. So she went around the room, oblivious to my trauma that I'm having at this moment. And she got to me and she said, "Where are your ancestors from?" And I blurted out, "Oh, Ethiopia." And she continued around the room, unaware that I had never heard the word Ethiopia until that moment. So I know, right? So I ran home I didn't run home. I went home after school and I said to my mom, remember I was a little 10-year-old girl, I said to my mom, "Mom, guess what? I think our ancestors are from Ethiopia." And she just kind of looked at me and she said, "And who do you think you are, the Queen of Sheba?" I went, "Oh, okay." Okay, so it was that last question, who do you think you are, that has proved to be the guiding light in my work. At the time, I did not know who I was. I was an uncongealed mass of various and what seemed to be unconnected parts. I was African American, I was a woman, I was a Jew, I was part Native American, part European, very Eastern African looking, a performer, a teacher, a playwright. How can all of those things exist in one person without some form of internal world war? Katie Cannon, Southern Baptist minister, she said this: "It is our task to gather the scattered threads of our history in this land and throughout, and make our history whole again, returning our past to ourselves and thereby regaining the way to our future for ourselves and our posterity." Toni Morrison in the book Tar Baby says, "I need to use everything. So we have to be everything that we are. I need to use everything, sound, image, performance, to get to the full meaning of my story." Gathering our stories, planting them as remnants of culture that have been lost or mistranslated through the diasporas. It's the way of ensuring that the stories continue to be told and passed on. It ensures the past, the present, and most importantly, it's a foundation for our future. It was necessary for me to connect the dots of my own personal history before I could even feel comfortable in this lifetime. For me to be here now, I must have come from somewhere. I must have come from somewhere to be here now. I coined this phrase called echo spirituality. It's the practice of reclaiming forgotten or silenced ancestral voices and using their wisdom to revision our lives. And to revision means to see with open eyes, using the wisdom of the heart. We as modern people are struggling with the modern dis-ease of spiritual sleepwalking. Many of us who have been silenced through abuse or any of the isms such as sexism, racism, classism, xenophobiaism, and on, we've been demonized, and we are on a journey of healing. Home is the destination of our journey, and the journey is remembering who we are and putting the pieces, all of our pieces back together. Only this journey will cure us of our spiritual as well as social and political somnambulist state. I must have come from somewhere for me to be here now. For me to be here now, I must have come from somewhere. This phrase that I keep saying, this phrase is an invocation. It's a calling to our ancestors. It acknowledges that with their guidance and wisdom, I can get there. We can get there. And asking, they will come. They will come because returning to us now is the very reasons for their existence, right? I mean, our ancestors exist to help us. We start by asking them for their help. And then once we get their help, because they're just waiting. I had an ancestor say to me, "We've been here, what have you been doing? We've been waiting for you." You need to ask. Okay? And once we do that, we can repair and reconnect to ourselves, our backgrounds, our stories. We can familiarize ourselves with the diversity of each other, right? We can become comfortable with each other's stories. And then we can create shared stories. I wasn't sure I wanted to be seen, to be vulnerable. But that vulnerability, being seen, it's the essence of echo spirituality. Being open to experience, being able to trust, being able to have the moments of vulnerability where deep self-learning takes place. In my Southern family, a wealth of information was transmitted to me through traditions, spoken and unspoken. And one of the most important traditions and means of transmitting culture, besides storytelling, was what? Tell me. singing, sharing a meal, right? Breaking bread, the ritual of eating together. Just in time for Thanksgiving, right? I must have come from somewhere for me to be here now. I must have come from somewhere for me to be here now. Of course, the most important part of living is learning to love ourselves. And that journey begins by learning to forgive ourselves. Ernest Holmes has stated, true imagination is not fanciful daydreaming. It's fire from heaven. Fire cleanses. We have our own internal fire, and I want us to use that fire right now to help us burn up some of our self-disapproval, some of our fear and belief that we are not enough, that we are not good enough, wise enough, not rich enough, because we are enough. And we are not alone in knowing this. We can be here today in community just as we are, because we have the strength of all of our ancestors right here, encouraging, supporting, and lifting us to get up and get on. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes just for a few minutes and just to focus on your heart. I want us to experience that healing fire. Let's give some time right now for us to forgive ourselves for not being perfect, for not listening to our ancestors or spirit guides or the voice of divinity, and then to open our hearts to our own ability to love ourselves. And through that love, not only can we open our hearts, but also our eyes, our ears, and our spirits. And if it would help you with this, you can just place your hands over your heart, close your eyes, and just listen. In my heart's desire, and in time, our lives become divine. The God in me sees the light of God in you. If there were nothing else, if there were nothing more, if that were all there was, and there was nothing more, it would be enough. It would be enough. It would be enough. It would be enough. There is a desire in our hearts, in our souls, a longing to return to the ancient cosmology of interconnectedness. Our ancestors are our inner wisdom and our strength. Our strength and wisdom lie in asking for their help and remembering that for me to be here now, I must have come from somewhere. I'm going to be honest right now. And I'm going to say that in the I spent a lot of time alone, and it wasn't just because of COVID. I didn't want to be seen because I felt that I knew what everyone looking at me was thinking, what they were feeling, what they were saying about me because of how I looked, because of how I wore my hair. And I was tired of having to deflect stares and answer insensitive questions. So one day I called up my girlfriend, the one that made me watch The Help. The one who, I told her what I was feeling. I was feeling tired, drained. Then I asked her why this uprising seems to be happening just about every 30 years since the Civil War. And it ended with like me feeling there was no change. I told her my mother went through this, as did her mother. And I wish my mother was still here. I'm so glad
Yeah, turn yours
I
down
was
on the Twitter.
around to see you.
I should, there
I'm
we
so
go. Yep.
glad though her wisdom
There's the town.
yes, so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad Mama's not around for this. But I wanna thank her. I wanna thank her. I wanna thank her 'cause she showed me how to understand the ways of this world. I'm so glad Granddaddy taught me to follow my dreams. I'm so glad he still guides me through dangers unseen. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad Granddaddy taught me how to dream. And I wanna thank him. I wanna thank him. I wanna thank him 'cause he showed me how to make my way through the ways of this world. I'm so glad I can face each day feeling loved. I'm so glad I can rest when each day is done. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad I can face each day with love. And I wanna thank love. I wanna thank love. I wanna thank love 'cause love showed me how to understand and make my way through the ways of this world. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad I can face each day with love. I can face each day